Hi everybody joining. So this is an overview, an AMA. I recently shared an update about the marketing plan for Streamr. Hopefully you've all had a chance to read it, but I thought we'd just do this as a follow-up, just to answer some of the questions that have come up based on that marketing plan that I shared. Tom, obviously you're emceeing proceedings, so I'll hand over to you if there's anything you want to add.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Francine. I think it would be good just to maybe just introduce yourself and your role and some of the work we've been doing recently, just to set the scene, and then we can get started with some of these questions.
Yeah, absolutely. So for those of you who may not know, I'm the head of marketing and comms at Streamr. So I have been working with a team, the comms team, to develop the marketing strategy that I shared not too long ago, last week on the blog. But prior to that, we've been developing the marketing strategy for Streamr and actually rolling out all of the updates and campaign launches that you've seen. So, for example, last year, the focus was quite closely on data unions. So all of the data unions, news and placements and updates that you've seen, that's been my team, the marketing and comms team, delivering it. But beyond that, we've also been working on the bigger picture and looking at the marketing strategy for the entirety of the Streamr roadmap. And so part of what I mentioned in the blog was just our focus this year and the spotlight that we're going to be currently putting on the Streamr network, which is a really big part of our proposition. That we're finally seeing some use cases and some evidence behind. So that's pretty much the high level overview of what we've been doing. There's obviously more detail in the blog itself, which I won't kind of go through, but I think hopefully some more will emerge through this AMA, and I can answer some more questions about the specific tactics that we're delivering as well. Yeah, that's the intro.
Great, thank you. So maybe first of all, you can just dive into a little bit more on what the marketing priority will be for the next 6 months, and maybe talking a little bit about tactics.
Yeah, absolutely. So as I mentioned, last year the focus was with data unions and promoting adoption. And so by that, the focus was really on getting more builders and more developers to be aware of the Streamr ecosystem and the Streamr stack, and potentially build data unions. So that was the focus. It's not to say that we're not still going to be working on that. In terms of like priorities for the next 6 months, in the short term, the most major one, and by short term I mean very, very soon, it's Data Unions 2.0. So that's the second iteration of the framework. There's quite a bit that we can say about that. It's mainly a technical update, technical upgrade, I should say. So the framework, certain things will be changed. For example, there'll be like a side chain added, and the actual token itself, data, will become multi-chain. And that means that tokens can actually be shared between different data unions, which was something that wasn't possible before. So there's quite a lot of new opportunity for data unions to thrive and potentially scale as a proposition or as an app type that we can do on the network. So that's in the short term, we've got Data Unions 2.0, and that's launching fairly soon. I'd say in a couple of weeks, maybe 2 or 3 weeks. So as part of that, we will be rolling that out and letting people know within the community, our existing data union builders, but we'll also be reaching out to people that have heard about the framework and people that we were targeting towards pretty steadily last year, people that have heard about data unions, just letting them know that there's this update. In terms of like the wider crypto space, obviously it's a technical upgrade, so there will be the story in that there can be more done and there's more functionality and more options for existing builders, but we won't be like doing, we'll be sending out a press release and we'll expect moderate take up on that just because it is a technical upgrade, but we'll be doing like the standard marketing push and letting everybody within the community know. We'll also, in tandem, I'd say another priority this year, as I mentioned in the blog, is growing the community. So, for example, we've got this Discord group and we're happy to see it thriving and growing every day. we're currently now working on some targeted campaigns to grow our other social media channels and just let people know that these are the spaces where they can find out more about the Streamr project. And thankful for you all here, obviously interested in finding out more. Another priority is just doing more of these, just being a bit more open for the existing community members that have questions, such as yourselves, that want them answered. So that's another priority. But I'd say in terms of launches, it's the Data Unions 2.0 in the short term. Then in the medium term, we've got Brubeck, which is a really, really big update. And this is a really key thing on the roadmap. It's basically the first time anybody in the community can run a node on the network. There'll be the functionality to easily connect any application and contribute bandwidth to the network. So it's something that we talked about since the white paper. It's a major step in decentralization, and it's a much bigger story in terms of actually getting the word out there and trying to generate press and interest. So as part of that, some of the tactics that we'll be employing, obviously all of the same stuff that I mentioned about data unions, but with the network specifically, we'll be inviting people to actually run a node, actually try the technology for themselves, which actually goes quite a long way to getting more coverage and more eyes on Streamr as a project and more understanding about what we do. You know, there's only so much we can explain the tech when people are actually get their hands on it and can actually use it for themselves. It can generate a lot more interest and excitement about what's really like a revolutionary piece of tech within Web3. So as part of that, we'll be reaching out to influencers, which is something we haven't really done in a programmatic way before, just because, as I said, it was mainly devs we were targeting with data unions. We'll be having much more presence in the crypto space. So we'll be reaching out to publications that are interested in decentralization in Web3 and the type of tech that we're developing with the network. So there's a lot of opportunity now that there's a really solid story and a solid piece of tech that people can try out for themselves. And so that's going to be like a really, really major push for this year. So I'd say the priorities, just chronologically, it's data unions, then Brubeck. But in terms of the actual market saturation, we see that really happening with the Brubeck launch, which is, I'd say, midterm. So in a couple of months' time, I'd say you can be sure to see some news about that coming out.
That's great. I guess following on from that, maybe you can talk a bit about how the data unions marketing might differ from the network, and sort of what lessons from the data union launch we can take to the network launch of Brubeck.
Yeah, that's a good question. So data unions, I want to clarify as well that it's not over. So we're not just shifting, like dropping data unions and shifting to the network. It's all part of what Streamr has to offer. So data unions, the target audience and the focus for that was developers, but also last year we were doing quite a lot of legislative work, showing up in spaces where people are talking about the data economy on a whole, really tapping into those end user conversations, end user concerns that people have about owning their data and data monetization. So these targets were quite specific. It was quite laser focus. So it was developers, people that can actually build data unions, and that includes individual developers, enterprises, people that are hobby developers, anything like that. So the whole spectrum of people that build, people that are actually startups that have an application that could potentially plug into the data union framework. So we're targeting all of these people, and we were also targeting publications, people that are having those wider conversations, governmental bodies, people in legislative spaces. And so that's how we wound up with some of the great coverage that we did achieve with the data union launch, and also some of the great legislative change that we were part of, which I can go into a little bit later. So they're very specific audiences, and I think that's going to be the major difference between what we do for the network now, because we will still be having those conversations for data unions. There will be like a focus on that would mainly be coming from Shiv Malik, who is the head of growth, and potentially kind of moving into a slightly different function, but still with a great focus on data unions. So that work will continue in some capacity, but really the network focus is really going to be targeting anybody that has an interest in decentralization. So it really opens up a much wider audience than we've been previously targeting. And I'd say that's the biggest difference. Because, as I said, anyone can run a node. It's part of a wider conversation about, Web3, which is really on everybody's lips now. So we can actually tap into some of the hype where we haven't previously done that, because obviously we were marketing this framework. Now there's a big conversation about decentralization, whether it's DeFi or, as I said, like Web3 middleware. So there's much more that we can participate in now that we've actually got a solid piece of tech that we can bring to the conversation. So I think that's going to be the major difference. But just tactically, there were some things that we tried with Data Union launch. So we did an advert which was targeting developers. We're still kind of gathering the metrics on that, but we did see like good engagement and good click-through rates for some of the ads that we ran, not only on YouTube but on social media. We also ran a hackathon, and so we are now just kind of collating the reporting based on the campaign, and we're going to kind of go through it and see where we've seen some success and some take up. And there has been some really good results from that. We've had an upswing in data fund applications. We've had people building data unions as well, and also just the wider conversation has contributed to the likes of Swash, being at the forefront of some of these conversations and growing the way that they have. So yeah, it's a bit of a roundabout answer, but I'd say we are the major difference is the audience and some of the tactics. But there is still there is still scope to pick up some of what we learned with the Data Union campaign, which is still currently going on at the moment.
Okay. So you've touched on a few highlights there so far. I don't know if there's any others you want to sort of bring up, and then that would lead into maybe some of the challenges you found in messaging Streamr as well.
Yeah. Okay. Good question. So to kind of touch upon a few more highlights with regard to data unions. Firstly, I want to say that so Shiv Malik has been managing that, as I said, from the growth team quite in a focused way for the last year or so. So he's actually written a blog that covers all of the developments and everything that we've achieved with data unions, and that's going to be coming out next week. And he will be running an AMA similar to this to answer any questions specifically about data unions and what was achieved. And he was at the forefront of those legislative conversations with enterprises as well, and just talking about like the end user story, so data monetization and so on. So some of the highlights of that work, as I mentioned, we've had applications to the data fund grow. We've obviously had growth in the community. There's been a great couple of wins in terms of legislation as well. So the Data Governance Act, which basically means that within the EU data planning, data economy planning, I would say, they're going to make sure that there's room for what they're calling data intermediaries, which is pretty much data unions. I think they're now allocating like a 2 billion euro budget to the development of those, and that's largely in part, due to the work that our team has been doing. I say Shiv has been quite at the forefront, and actually Marlena within the comms team as well. She's been quite instrumental in some of those conversations. We've been working with bodies such as like My Data Global and Own Your Data, and so that that kind of win was really significant and a really great thing for us, because it shows that data unions are top of mind for a lot of people, top of mind for governments, and there will be like backing behind that. Another win from a legislative perspective is the Digital Markets Act, which basically enables scope for data portability. So data portability just means that if you have data with any of these big tech companies, right now, you can make a GDPR request within Europe and get that data within 30 days. But data portability just enables like one click rights. You can click on that data and actually move it, get all of your data that they have, sell it if you wish, and just have a view on it that's not currently available now. And we've been lobbying for that as well with the support, in tandem with like My Data Global. So that was a great win. Just in terms of like building and actual data unions, other great things that have happened off the back of the data union push that we did last year. Obviously, an app that was developed on the Streamr network, Swash, has cleared 10,000 users. I'm not going to personally take credit for that, but we definitely had, supported the team as they were building their marketing function up. So they've now appointed CMO Chloe Diamond, but prior to Chloe being onboarded, we obviously undertook quite a bit of audience research for them and had an understanding about like the broader market for user data and buyers. So we commissioned research by a gentleman called Henry Rhodes at JumpShot, which is basically, doing what data unions do, but perhaps in not so transparent way. And yeah, that research was really instrumental to them kind of going forward and pitching their ideas to potential partners and going out there and building out what they created with Streamr. And likewise, we gave them kind of guidance in terms of like a referral program, and that's, I think, really contributed to their growth. So we've been advising them, but obviously they're an app, and the Streamr stack is a separate thing that we market in a separate way. Yeah, I'd say those are some good wins. We've also recently just run the Data Challenge Hackathon in India, and we had quite a few applications to the applicants. And that's individual devs and teams, existing startups as well that wanted to integrate with data unions. I think there were like 200 plus applicants. We had 100 people building. We've kind of whittled it down to like a top 25 at the moment. And I think there's going to be like, there is going to be like a top 5 that will be running a pitch this weekend. And so, it could be a potential new startup in there that's a data union that's viable. We'll see what the outcome of that is, but that's been really good just to see people getting stuck in and really building on the data union framework. So I'd say that's those are a highlight of the wins. But kind of gone into a lot of detail there. I know Shiv's his article goes into even more detail, and he's gonna cover this in his own AMA as well about data unions. I would say the challenges then, just to the second half of your question. Basically, I'd say one of the major challenges is just explaining data unions, because obviously we are we offer the underlying framework and the infrastructure for developers to build data unions, but Streamr as an entity, as a project, the network is always what we have been focusing on. That's the decentralization, that's the core of what we do. And so I'd say the challenge last year was explaining data unions for this end user story, and giving the messaging about owning your data and taking ownership and data monetization, all very great stories. And we were in a position to do that because we had, a great use case in Swash, and we had the data union framework ready. At the same time, though, we don't want the network to fall by the wayside. It's the core of what we do. We are decentralized. We're not promoting a specific app. We're not promoting specific products that are built on our infrastructure. And so the challenge that we found was just making sure, it was almost like telling two stories. It's having a split focus. And so now I think we're going to address that this year for sure by focusing in and giving a spotlight to the network, and also just making it clear how everything fits together. We're not dropping data unions. It's all interoperable, but it's just about making sure that it's clear for everybody that's learning about the Streamr project newly, how it all fits in together. And that's a challenge which I think we are definitely addressing this year, especially with the website upgrade that's happening very soon. And just now that we've got the network in a great space as it's coming up to Brubeck, there's going to be a lot more clarity as with regard to the capabilities of the network that we didn't have before. So now we had this realized story about data unions, so it was easy to tell. Now we've actually got a more realized story about the network too, so that's going to make it a lot simpler to kind of bring them together and explain how it all works. So I think that was one of the challenges, but I think we're on our way to addressing that and making it smoother.
Mm-hmm. So one question that comes up quite a lot in the community is about exchanges, and maybe you can share a bit about the thinking there about exchanges, any strategies.
Yeah, so I saw the question actually in the community. So it was about the bigger exchanges such as like Coinbase. We do have we have new exchange listings going up all the time. We did have a few around the data union launch. In terms of the big exchanges such as Coinbase, obviously we'd love to be listed there. It's definitely not. It's definitely something that we're thinking of, and we do have these conversations. Sorry, we're open to having these conversations with these exchanges. I know that Marlena and Matthew also, they responded within the channel, in the marketing channel on Discord, and I think their answers were good. So if you haven't seen those, I do encourage that you click on the marketing channel and scroll up and see those answers. They're valid. I do want to add a couple of things. So yes, we are open to being listed on bigger exchanges. However, it's just worth noting that exchanges such as, I think the example given was Coinbase, exchanges such as that, those larger exchanges, ultimately it's their decision as to which tokens, which coins they want to list. And they have their own rules and regulations around listing as well. So it's not just, us making the application, they've got to accept it too. And I think Matthew touched upon this in the marketing Discord in response to this question. We are more likely to be picked up for listing on these larger exchanges, especially the US-based ones, if we are decentralized. And that's simply because there's a thought that they might have that the token, that the coin exists just as a security, which is something they've got to safeguard against on these exchanges. So as we, show the token utility and get more fully decentralized, we're more likely to be picked up by those kinds of exchanges too. So it's definitely on the trajectory. We're definitely moving towards that. Obviously, we're getting closer to decentralization all the time. We just kickstarted decentralized governance, and obviously Brubeck is on the the upcoming milestone too. So I think I mentioned this in the blog. It's basically it's never a token tactic in isolation. So it's never just, hey, take the token, let's put it on these big exchanges. It's actually, part of the holistic plan, and it's got to happen as we progress down the roadmap. So now we are moving closer to decentralization. We've had the governance vote, decentralized governance. We're moving now towards Brubeck. So now is a good time, as at the Brubeck launch, it will be a better time to make those plays for the bigger exchanges, because they're more likely to accept us as a coin if we're decentralized because of the regulations that they have. So that was one element of that. Just to clarify, then it's never an either or. It's never like we're not going for it. It's just about when within the broader plan it makes sense to do so. And this is what I think Matthew said in his answer. But another thing to also think on is we are looking quite closely at decentralized exchanges. So that's a space that we see that's up and coming. So decentralized exchanges, also known as DEXs, and that's a space that we're really looking forward to being part of too. So we are looking at that, and it's all going to fit. It's all going to fit in, as I said, to the broader moves towards decentralization. I think that's when we can start making concerted efforts in these spaces, when it's clear that what the token utility is.
Okay, so on that decentralization and transparency, which you touched on a bit in the blog, maybe you can share a few of the initiatives that are likely to be coming around that.
Decentralization and transparency.
Yeah, you mentioned Discord. And how,
sorry, say again?
Yeah, so some of the initiatives around sort of greater transparency from Streamr, and maybe connected with the move to Discord, and some of the things we're likely to see there.
Yeah. So that's why. Yeah, you're absolutely right. Sorry, I didn't get the question to start with. The point of Discord and more openness and more transparency is the fact that we're open source. We're an open source project. We want to show everybody, what we're doing and enable an open discourse. We want the community's input, with majority of what we're doing. So the reason why we shifted to Discord, I mean, a simple reason is just clarity and a bit more structure. It's just a lot more. It's a lot clearer. You can have specific channels for specific things. Telegram can be quite chaotic, and in terms of engagement, this is a great kind of functionality, and I hope you're all finding that to be the case. And I'm happy to see the people that have joined this call, for example. So that was the reason behind the move. It just makes sense because we can talk about everything here in a structured way. There's a space for everybody if you want to learn about the technical side, if you want to ask questions and so on. There's a lot more that can be done in real time on Discord, so it makes sense. We are going to be moving to more transparency with regard to the roadmap. So as we're working, as the developers are actually building, they will be sharing, what's going on within their channels. We'll be opening up the project calls. So that's calls with the different team leads. That's including myself, Henry as well, leaders, the leads of the partnerships team and so on. We'll be opening up those calls so people can see what we're working on, on a week-to-week basis, just letting everybody into the project and, enabling you to ask questions in real time and get a feel for everything that we're building, because it is open source. We do really value the community, and we do value all of your input as well. And that ties into the recent survey that we've put out. And thank you if you're on this call and you've filled that in. Just any input and any suggestions that you have about how you want to see the network marketed, that kind of thing. We're always open to getting your feedback and input on. And so that's part of the reason why we're opening up, just to make things a lot more easy for everybody to contribute to the project. That's part of the reason.
So one question from the community that in the past it's been a little bit divisive is generally the Streamr approach of showing and not telling approach to promotion, and maybe that's partly the Finnish DNA, but maybe you have some thoughts on that.
It's not, that came from me actually. It's a UK thing apparently. No, so my background is marketing generally. I've worked on a variety of different tech projects, not necessarily crypto, just gaming and B2C, which is business to consumer, so end users. And it's a fundamental marketing principle. So show, don't tell is fundamental marketing 101. And it's just simply because you as an individual, as a person, how do you feel if somebody is obviously trying to sell you something? Nobody likes that feeling. You immediately get your back up. You feel a bit, suspicious if people are coming to you and saying, buy this thing, I made this thing, you need to have it. I guess a good example is if a perfect stranger came up to you in the street and handed you a cake, said, here you go, I made this cake. Would you go home and eat the cake? I mean, chances are you'd be a bit, skeptical of this person trying to sell you their cake or give you their cake. I'm trying to bring this analogy back, but basically, so the good comparison to that then is if you have a close friend who you're just speaking with in passing conversation, they're like, oh my gosh, I tried this cake, it's amazing, I think you should try it. That's your friend. They've got no vested interest in this cake. They are just giving you their opinion based on something that they've done, that they've seen for themselves. You trust them, and therefore you're just more likely to try it. So that's just a fundamental marketing principle. I hope that was kind of laid out quite clearly. But I'd say that that's something that a marketer should do generally, and that's why businesses generally, that's why they employ influencers, because they have a fan base that trusts them. That's why they get case studies if they're a business that's offering black and white services, like, is this service good or not? Did they break my car or not? If the business themselves are saying that, they have a vested interest in saying that. So, it's not as trustworthy as a customer that, or 10 customers or 15 customers that are saying, hey, this business did great, they fixed my car, this cake is great. So that's why it's just a fundamental principle. But I will say within this space, within the land of crypto, even more so, because there's a lot more motive for a project to hype something and to overstate the utility of their token or overstate the worth of their coin. So there's a lot more scope for pirates in this space. And so that fundamental marketing principle actually applies almost like twofold, fully double here, than it would with any other type of marketing, just because the markets are so volatile and people there are unfortunately pirates. And so this show don't tell approach, it enables us to have integrity. It enables us to actually lock in and be part of broader conversations that are happening. It enables us to gain credibility from other major players in the space. There is a time and place for hype, for sure, and as I said, we're not discounting that at all. But hype, these things feed each other as well. So hype on its own can make things rise and fall. Whereas if we have a solid use case that everybody's talking about, that we've got proof behind it. For example, now we can confidently say that the network has a latency and scalability that is on par with centralized services. It's something we can confidently say now. So with that kind of backing and that I'd say clarity and proof of concept, we're more likely to make a significant impact than we are if we're just saying, hey, this token is great. And yeah, it's just a fundamental marketing principle, not necessarily a finished thing. Mm-hmm. But that's the thinking behind it.
Okay.
I hope the analogy was clear. Hey.
The judge. So maybe you have some thoughts on some of the initiatives moving forward to be more impactful on YouTube and Reddit. That kind of ties in. That was a question we had earlier.
Yeah, absolutely. So with YouTube, it's an interesting thing because we can spend time like creating very glossy content, and I've seen projects doing that, but in general, the take up is not great in terms of like the return on investment with the time that's spent on like glossy content for YouTube, and it's just about figuring out where our team focus and resource needs to go. I'd say the content that we will be putting out will be to support devs, and that's pretty much what we did last year as well. I think we'll be ramping that up for sure when it comes to the network, because there's more people that might not have huge technical knowledge that just want to run a node. So we'll definitely be providing a lot more guidance in video form, whether that's just like screencasts or recorded calls or things like that, just to provide some more technical support where it would be needed to run a node. In terms of like the more kind of curated content, we'll do that with regard to some of the major developments that we're running. But as I said, a lot of the time it's quite a lot of resource for like a glossy video that doesn't really have that much reach. It's just more of a nice to have. I'd say where we can see YouTube growing is quite likely with the backing, as I mentioned, and the validation of other YouTubers. So a lot of the crypto influencers in this space, they've got quite a strong YouTube presence, and it would just be about like tapping into that and having them mention us, potentially having a link to our channel in their descriptions, and kind of growing it that way, which is a bit more organic, a bit more natural, and like a glossy film that doesn't have the reach that it requires organically. We will be working on more films. I think we will be doing an update to the existing Streamr film. That again needs to tie in quite closely to the network development. So it might be this year, it might be towards the end of the year, it might be as we get closer to Tatum, which is the next milestone of the network. At which point, that's a really strong story, and it's a glossy piece of content, but it's definitely worth pushing. So we would probably create that and then put some advertising muscle behind it. But yeah, organically, in terms of like organic growth on YouTube, it would be more about like tying into influencers and getting their I'd say their backing and potentially growing our following based on their followers as well. In terms of Reddit, that's an area that we're currently kind of looking at growing and developing a bit more. Tom, I know that you're developing some plans around that, so maybe we can come back to that if you wanted to touch on that towards the end.
Yeah, sure.
But yeah, that's the YouTube approach.
Okay. So Swash have recently reached 10,000 users, which is quite a big milestone. Maybe you have some thoughts on some of the reasons for that growth, and just your general impressions of that as one of the pioneering data unions.
Yeah, so cool. So as I mentioned earlier when we were just talking about the achievements, I'd say, the reasoning behind that is obviously the backing that we provided. Obviously, they've hired somebody as well that's dedicated to marketing their product. And as part of that, they've implemented some of the ideas and the guidance that we provided back when they didn't have a marketer. One of those being the referral program. So now, users can refer others to try Swash. And I think that's been quite a large part of their success in terms of clearing that first milestone. Shiv will be able to give a better update on our future interactions with Swash from a data union perspective. So it's going to be something fairly standalone. They're obviously their product, and it's just going to, I think, potentially would be maybe advising them similar to what we did prior to their focused marketing manager coming on board. But I'd say definitely the referral program really supported with that, and also the research that we carried out on behalf of Swash, like towards the middle of last year. I think it was the middle of last year, where we just talked about the viability as a product. I think that's really helped in terms of their funding and the next kind of seed round applications, because it shows that there is a viable product. There's an audience, there's a demographic that would really want that information. And so I think those are the reasons, part of the reasons why they've grown and cleared that milestone.
Right. So another question here from the community. This might be more of a partnership question, but are there any marketing efforts being devoted towards getting car sharing data on the Streamr network?
Yeah, so I'd say mobility. There are some mobility things happening. I can't give that much detail about it. Obviously, we have NDAs in place, but sooner rather than later, there will be an announcement that we can make about a new mobility partnership. So that's fairly exciting. There are some things in the pipeline, but obviously it's not just down to us. It's the partners as well that influence when we can actually announce something like that.
Okay. We have a question here about nodes as well running on the network. Again, it may be a little early, but do you have anything you can share about running nodes? Obviously, sort of grassroots promotion will be a big part of that. Is that tying into our thinking yet? Node recruitment as well as general network promotion.
Sorry, could you clarify the last part?
The question here is about sort of what can people expect to earn for running a node, but I think that might be a little early to answer.
It's a bit early to answer that. We can't. There's no kind of specific earning structure just yet, but it's definitely something we'll be looking into. Mm-hmm. But it's quite early to answer what people can earn from running a node. Some of the tactics we will be, potentially like running fun use cases as well. So just showing what can potentially be run on the decentralized network. So that's going to be quite cool. Like we'll provide some guidance and some ideas, but we can push that out as a way to incentivize the community, but also just show again the approach of showing like the different capabilities in a way that we haven't been able to before. I think that's going to be quite key to getting people involved. But also, as I mentioned, the survey that we've put out, we're still gathering the responses to that. We've had like upwards of, I think, over 40 responses so far. So we're definitely going to look into that and see what the suggestions look like there too, and make sure that we implement any of the best ones to get people on board and running nodes.
Mm-hmm. Are there any events or talks for the community to look out for? This might be something for Marlena to give an update on, but
Yeah, I mean, I can give an update on I guess the closest one to us is the demo day this Saturday. So I mentioned that already with regard to the data challenge. That's the teams in India that built data unions on the framework. So that's happening this Saturday at the UTC time is, I think, 12 midday. And as part of that event, Henry will also be speaking on the panel as well, just about think Ethereum. Let me just remind myself. But basically, there will be a panel as part of that talk, and talking about obviously the data union frameworks as well. So that's the nearest event. Most of the events that we're running this year, the majority of them are going to be virtual, obviously, because there's still a bit of uncertainty with regard to travel with the pandemic. But yeah, we regularly give updates about the events in Packet Switch, which is the monthly newsletter. So if you'd like to attend the demo day on Saturday, then you can find the link to register in the Packet Switch newsletter, which went out on Friday last week. So it should be in your inbox for you to find.
Great. So if anyone in the community does have any final questions, please add them in the marketing channel. I wonder if there's anything else you'd like to share with the community, any other events taking place behind the scenes. I know you can't give complete details, but just anything else that you've been working on recently or looking forward to. Or...
Yeah, well, there's the API 3 partnership, which we announced not too long ago. So just to give an update on that, that's going quite well. We've been discussing their pub sub protocol with them and trying to make sure that we can have an active role within developing it and actually helping them along their roadmap, helping them implement their pub sub protocol along their roadmap. So that's going quite well, and we'll be able to announce some more about that, I think, quite soon too. So I know people are quite interested in partnerships. So just to give you an update there, that's still happening. And it's moving along quite nicely.
Great. So maybe I could just talk briefly about Reddit. So Reddit's something, it's never quite been as active, the community on Reddit, as Telegram, Discord and other channels. And it would actually be good to hear from the community about the kind of things they would like to see in the Streamr Reddit. We tried a few initiatives there, and it's useful for cross-posting, and we've run some ads there, things like that. But yeah, it would be good to get a sense of what you think you would like or to see there, or maybe some examples of the kind of initiatives that are working there that we could try. Really, it's always sort of fallen in between a bit of the platforms, sort of Twitter and the kind of instant communication on Telegram and others. So yeah, I think that would be a good one. If anyone has any thoughts on that, it would be good to hear from you. But we'll certainly be trying a few things as well.
Definitely, it's all about trying as well. So we've tried Discord. We're trying Discord, and so far so good. And it's just about gravitating towards in any type of marketing, always kind of testing things, gravitating towards what works and culling what doesn't. And so that's the same with everything that we've done with data unions. There's some tactics that we've tried that maybe won't translate over quite as well and quite nicely to the network push. And yeah, same goes with social media. We're going to continue to optimize everything that we have, and that includes Reddit. So absolutely, as Tom said, if you've got any comments and suggestions about that, then by all means do share them in the marketing channel or wherever you'd like.
Great. Well, I think unless there are any final questions, I'll just say thanks very much to Francine, and thanks to everyone for joining and sending your questions in advance. I hope we've covered all of them.
Just got one more point to make.
Sure.
So I've just refreshed my memory about the event on Saturday. So it's about Ethereum, Henry's panel, but it's the Internet of Ethereum. That's the actual topic of the panel. So that's what will be discussed if you're interested in joining. And just if you just want to join and have a look at the demos that are being presented as well, there's an opportunity to do that. So just wanted to clarify what was available on Saturday.
Okay. There's one final question come in there on the channel. So compared to Ocean, Streamr's not so active on Twitter, and will that change? Any specific Twitter initiatives coming, do you think? we tried the tweet storm last week.
Yeah, exactly. So you may have seen we published a tweet storm last week, which was just an overview of the marketing plan, which is a tactic that that we'll probably be doing more of in terms of like providing regular updates. We are fairly active. We do post every day. It's just about obviously being part of the crypto conversations and getting in front of the right people and actually growing the platform. Growing the channel, as it were. So there's work currently happening right now. We've actually started a campaign to grow the followers on Twitter, and that's going to enable. We're targeting people that are actually within the crypto space or that have an interest in decentralization and Web3 and what we're building, and from a general perspective. So there is a concerted effort and a concerted push to grow the Twitter presence. But as I say, we do tweet every day. It's just I guess it's relative what's considered active. But yeah, I think once the channel grows, we'll definitely be seeing a lot more engagement. But not to put too fine a point on it, but I can actually push this back to you guys as well. We definitely encourage you to retweet everything that we tweet and talk about Streamr on your socials and share it within your networks as well. That's definitely a way in which you can help support the project. And we want to see more of that. We want to see more memes. We love the memes that we're seeing on Discord. We want to see them on Twitter. So I think that it's definitely a communal effort. And as I say, we're doing everything on our side to grow. And part of that is also kind of looking to you guys and getting more involvement from you on social media as well. So feel free to share your memes. We're really enjoying those.
Yeah, we'll have some resources as well closer to the Brewbrek launch to sort of support that grassroots promotion. So yeah, look out for that.
Absolutely.
Okay, well, I think that's hopefully covered everything then. So yeah, thank you very much, Francine, and thank you everyone who sent questions. And yeah, we'll see you in the community.
Thanks everyone. See you on Discord.